In 2017, I read a book that completely changed the trajectory of my life. It was one of those right time, right place, right book. And it struck me like a lightning bolt from the finance gods. Okay, that part might be exaggerated a little bit, but this book did help me get from 0 net worth to over 100,000 net worth in just 3 years. And at the end of this video, I'm gonna be sending the newest edition to one of my subscribers, so make sure you stay till the end. So it all started my junior year of college. I was actually feeling lost and unsure of my career path, but I had this idealistic view of what I wanted out of life. I just had no idea how to get there. So I did the one thing that I thought could help me. I started consuming every business and self-help content I could get my hands on. Dozens of books, hundreds of podcasts, and thousands of articles, which led me to buying this book, Set for Life by Scott Trench. I ended up finishing it within a week, and my entire perception of how to build wealth was flipped upside down. This book was so pivotal to my young and impressionable brain that I decided to follow the steps exactly in this book just to see where it got me. Because after all, I didn't really have a path forward, and this was the blueprint that I needed. So one of the first chapters in Set for Life is called Why Wealth Creation Starts with Frugality. You've probably heard that it's much easier to make money when you already have money, and that was my first big problem. I had no money. So if I wanted to build massive wealth, I had to prioritize saving money first. And that's when I arrived to the first of 3 major forks I'd have along my journey. After graduation, I had 2 job opportunities presented to me. They were similar roles, but one I'd be making $54,000 and another I'd be making $46,000. And ultimately, I chose the lower paying job for the sole reason of saving money. Let me explain. I learned that the higher paying job would be downtown and I'd have to rent an expensive apartment, but the lower paying job was only 15 minutes away from my parents' house, meaning I could live with them and save thousands per month, even with a lower salary. So that's what I did. This was a very intentional decision. I moved in with my parents at 23 years old, and as long as I helped around the house, I'd be able to live rent free. Now, I just had to figure out what to do with all the money that I'd be saving. So in part 2 of Set for Life, Scott Trench makes a very compelling argument that once you have $25,000 saved up, you should start house hacking. House hacking is when you buy a house to live in and then you rent out extra rooms or units to earn income. In his example, he saved up $25,000 and then bought a duplex where he lived in one side and rented out the other side. This allowed him to live significantly cheaper because he had other people renting part of his home. And since this book was my Bible, I followed the same exact steps. About 14 months after I moved in with my parents, I had saved up $25,000. And just as I was about to buy my first duplex, the world shut down.
2020 is now the deadliest year in U.S. history.
Since late March, the U.S. has led the world with the most cases and the most deaths.
All human interaction stopped. The stock market plummeted. The entire population was venturing into the unknown. This was the second fork in my 3-part journey. I had sacrificed a year of not going out and living with my parents and saving every dollar I possibly could. And now I was paralyzed with fear.
States soon start closing schools and announcing stay-at-home orders.
Stay at home.
Stay home, stay safe.
Quite simply, stay at home.
Will the housing market crash? Will people lose their jobs and stop paying rents? But I had a choice to make, either stay at home with my parents and be comfortable, or venture out into the unknown. And despite being overwhelmed by doom and gloom, I made the choice to move forward with my plan. I was touring houses with masks and I was making virtual offers, and in July of 2020, I closed on my first duplex. And looking back, this was one of the most stressful moments I had ever gone through, but little did I know that pushing through the pain would actually make me over $50,000 in the future. So I was living in the top unit of my duplex and renting out the bottom. My mortgage payment all in was $1,600 per month, and I was renting out the bottom for $1,250 per month, meaning my rent was like $400 per month. Not only was I building equity in a home that was going up in value, I was living for much cheaper than anyone else I knew. And this is when my savings started to snowball. This gave me the confidence to take the 3rd step, which would catapult my net worth. Even though saving is the first principle to building wealth, you can only cut back so much, which is why Scott starts to talk about increasing your income. Scott encourages you to bet on yourself. He says it's better to take a sales job with a high commission rather than play it safe and take the analyst position. And this is probably the most important point of this whole video, is that frugality gives you options in life. Scott was living very frugally. He was house hacking and riding his bike to work, which allowed him to take a huge risk by starting as a 3rd employee of a startup called BiggerPockets. And you know what? He even took a pay cut when he started with this new company, but now his income has 10x since then. If he had been living in a downtown apartment, riding in a brand new BMW, taking a pay cut to start at this new company would be extremely risky. It wouldn't even be in the realm of possibilities. Frugality provided him the opportunity opportunity to work at this startup, and boy did it pay off. It's funny because I also have a similar experience. I was working as an accountant, I was being paid about $53,000 at the time, but I also had a budding social media presence on TikTok, which eventually I started monetizing. I was able to take the leap from corporate to solopreneur because I was living on so little. My friend Cody calls it experimental freedom. If you have $25,000 saved up and you're only spending $2,000 per month, you could join a startup for 1 year. You could start a business for 1 year. You could buy a rental property or take a 6-month coding boot camp. The possibilities are endless. And now, being a content creator is my full-time job. All because I made those intentional decisions early to build a solid financial foundation so I could bet on myself. And now I'm betting on myself, and my income potential is much higher than it would have been had I stayed in the corporate world. And one of my favorite quotes from Naval Ravikant is, "People who live far below their means enjoy a freedom that busy people upgrading their lifestyles can't even fathom." It's honestly amazing what you can accomplish when you have a plan in place. With the recent recovery of the stock market, my rental property income, my rental property equity, and my social media business, it helped me build a net worth of over $100,000 by age 26. Now, your path may not follow exactly like mine, just like mine didn't follow exactly like Scott's, but this formula works, and if I can do this, you can definitely do this too. And since Scott Trench loves dad jokes so much, the person with the best dad joke in the comments will receive a 5-year anniversary edition of Set for Life. I'll announce the winner on my Instagram next week. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you learned something from it, and take care.